Section 26 of Revelations of a Wife. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Mary Rhodey. Revelations of a Wife by Adele Garrison. Chapter 26. A Voice That Carried Far. "Ah, Mrs. Graham, this is an unexpected pleasure." Dr. Pettit's eyes looked down into my own with an expression that emphasized the words he had just uttered. His outstretched hand clasped mine warmly. His impressive greeting embarrassed me a bit, and I turned instinctively toward Dicky to see if he had noticed the young physician's extraordinarily cordial greeting. But this I had no opportunity to discover, for as I turned, a taxi drew up to the curb with the Underwoods, who had come down to spend the promised week with us. Dicky and I were waiting for the little Cresthaven Beach trolley, and Dicky sprang to meet Grace Draper and the Durkees, Alfred Durkee and his mother, who completed our party for the motorboat trip. "I am very glad to see you, Dr. Pettit," I murmured conventionally. Then hurriedly, "Pardon me a moment. I must greet these guests. I will be back." When I turned again to him after welcoming Grace Draper with forced friendliness, and the Durkees with the real warmth of liking I felt for them, I found him talking to Lillian. Dr. Pettit, it appeared, was waiting for the same car we wished to take, and no one looking at our friendly chatting group would have known that he did not belong to the party. It was when we were all seated comfortably in the trolley, bowling merrily along over the grass-strewn track, that Lillian voiced a suggestion which had sprung into my own mind, but to which I did not quite know how to give utterance. "Look here," she said brusquely, "I am not the hostess of this party, but I'm practically one of the family, so I feel free to issue an invitation if I wish. Dr. Pettit, what's the matter with you joining our party for the day? Dicky here has been howling for another man to help lug the grub all morning. Unless you are set on a solitary day, that man might as well be you." She punctuated the parody with a mocking little moo. I had a sneaking little notion that Dicky would have been glad of the opportunity to box Lillian's ears for her suggestion. I do not think he enjoyed the idea of adding Dr. Pettit to the party, but, of course, in view of what she had said, there was nothing for him to do but to pretend a cordial acquiescence in her suggestion. "That's the very thing," he said with the heartiness which only I, and possibly Lillian, could dream was assumed. "Lil, you do occasionally have a gleam of human intelligence, don't you? I do hope you have no plan that will interfere with coming with us," he said to the physician. "We have a big boat chartered down here at the beach, and we're going to loaf along out to one of the desert islands and camp for the day." "That sounds like a most interesting program," said the young physician. His voice held a note of hesitation, and he looked swiftly, inquiringly at me and back again. It was so carelessly done that I do not think anyone noticed it, but I realized that he was waiting for me to join my voice to the invitation. "Well, Dr. Pettit," Dicky came up at this juncture, "out for the day?" His tone was cordial enough, but I, who knew every inflection of Dicky's voice, realized that he did not relish the appearance of Dr. Pettit upon the scene. "Yes, I'm going down to the shore for a dip," the young physician returned, and then, without the stiff dignity which I had seen in his professional manner, he acknowledged the introductions which I gave him to Grace Draper and the Durkees. "I trust you will think it interesting enough to make it worth your while to join us," I said demurely, lifting my eyes to his and catching a swift flash of something which might be either relief or triumph in his steely gray ones. "Indeed, I shall be very glad to accompany you," he said, smiling. Our boat, a large, comfortable one, built on lines of usefulness rather than beauty, slipped over the dancing blue waters of the bay like an enchanted thing. A neat striped awning was stretched over the rear of the boat beneath which we lounged at ease. The boat sped on as lazily as our idle conversation, and finally we came in sight of a gleaming beach of sand, with seaweed so luxuriantly tangled that it looked like small clumps of bushes, with the calm, still water of the bay on one side and the lazily rolling surf on the other. "Behold our desert island!" Dicky exclaimed dramatically, springing to his feet. Jim ran the boat skillfully up on the beach and grounded her. Harry Underwood stepped forward to assist me ashore, but Dr. Pettit, with unobtrusive quickness, was before him. As I laid my hand in that of the young physician, Harry Underwood gave a hoarse stage laugh. "I told you so," he croaked maliciously. "I knew I had a rival on my hands." As Harry Underwood uttered his gibing little speech, Dicky raised his head and looked fixedly at me. It was an amazed, questioning look, one that had in it something of the bewilderment of a child. In another instant he had turned away to answer a question of Grace Draper's. I felt my heart beating madly. Was Dicky really taking notice of the attentions which Harry Underwood and Dr. Pettit were bestowing upon me? I had no time to ponder long, however, for Lillian Underwood seized my arm almost as soon as we stepped on shore and walked me away until we were out of earshot of the others. "Did you see Dicky's face?" she demanded breathlessly, "when Harry and that lovely doctor of yours were doing their rival gallant act? It was perfectly lovely to see his lordship so puzzled. That doctor friend of yours was certainly sent by Providence just at this time. Just keep up the judicious little flirtation with him, and I'll wager that before the week's out Dicky will have forgotten such a girl as Grace Draper exists." If it had not been for the memory of Lillian's advice ringing in my ears, I think I should have much astonished Dr. Pettit and Harry Underwood when they started into the surf with me. The whole situation was most annoying to me, and besides, it was so unutterably silly. I might have been any foolish schoolgirl of 17, with a couple of immature youths vying for my smiles, for any reserve or dignity there was in the situation. My fingers itched to astonish each of the smirking men with a sound box on the ear, but my fiercest anger was against Dicky. If he had been properly attentive to me, Mr. Underwood and Dr. Pettit would have no opportunity, indeed would not have dared, to pay me the idiotic compliments or to offer the silly attentions they had given me. But Dicky and Grace Draper were romping in the surf like two children, splashing water over each other, and running hand in hand toward the place far out on the sand, for it was low tide, where they could swim. They might have been alone on the beach for anything their appearance showed to the contrary, and yet as I gazed I saw Dicky look past the girl in my direction with a quick, furtive, watching glance. As they went farther into the surf, he sent another glance over his shoulder toward me. As I caught it, guessing that in all his apparent interest in Grace Draper, he was yet watching me and my behavior, something seemed to snap in my brain. I would give him something to watch. With a swift movement I slipped a little bit away from the two men by my side, and filling my hands with water, splashed it full into the face of Harry Underwood. "Dare you to play blind man's buff," I said gaily, sending another handful into Dr. Pettit's face, and then slipping adroitly to one side, I laughed with, I fancy, as much mischief as any hoyden of 16 could have put into her voice at the picture the men made trying to get the salt water out of their eyes. I had no compunctions on the score of their discomfort, for I felt that I had a score to settle with each of them. The way in which each took my rudeness, however, was characteristic of the men. Harry Underwood's face grew black for a minute, then it cleared and he laughed boisterously. "You little devil," he said, "I'll pay you for that. Ever get kissed under water?" Well, that's what will happen to you before this day is over." Dr. Pettit's face did not change, but into his